Okay, everybody, thank you very much for coming to our session, Too Small to Make a Difference. This session is celebrating World Philosophy Day 2021. It's also coming hot on the heels of the big climate meeting, the Conference of the Parties meeting in Glasgow, which happened just a few weeks ago. And it's also to celebrate a festival called PhiloFest. We're going to get cracking. But just before we do, I just wanted to remind you that whenever we do philosophy, it's really important that we are respectful to each other when we have these conversations together. I don't expect you to agree with each other at all. I expect there'll be quite a bit of disagreement and quite a bit of debate, and that's the fun and the brilliant thing about doing philosophy. But can we please make sure that our interactions with each other are respectful and that we take each other's ideas seriously? Okay, so before we get to the kind of meat of today's session, let's start with something to warm us up a little bit. So we're going to use the chat function for this. Can you think about a time recently when you felt powerful? A time when you felt powerful? And can you scribble really briefly in the chat a sentence, a time when you felt powerful? It could be a powerful in a small way, or it could really be feeling quite mighty. But can you scribble in the chat, please, a time when you felt powerful? Luca's saying, I felt powerful when I managed to do something cool. Luca, come on mic and tell us what in particular did you do?
Well, it's for a lot of things, but for example, finishing, let's say, a math test or something like that. It doesn't have to be a math test, but it can be something else. But the point is, by finishing something that is sort of hard and you get a lot of satisfaction, you feel powerful, you feel very satisfied with yourself.
Thanks, Luca. Daniel, you're saying in the chat, when I had the ball in football, just expand on why that's a feeling of power when you have the ball.
As I'm not very good at football, so when I do get the ball, I kind of feel satisfied and like, oh, I'm powerful. I have the ball.
Thanks, Daniel. Sky saying finishing your English assignment. What is it about getting that done that makes you feel powerful, Sky?
Because it takes a while to do, and it's not particularly easy because you have to read a whole like script that could be 2 to 3 pages long, and then you have to write 250 to 350 words on that. So it's not easy, but it just gives you a sense of power once you've finished it, because you know that you've achieved that by yourself.
To achieve something by yourself is to be powerful. Thank you. Xanthi and or Giles are talking about trampolining. Can you tell us?
We have 2 trampolines in our back garden, and I figured out how to do a forward roll a couple of months ago.
I figured out how to do a backflip on the trampoline.
Yeah.
When we do that, it feels so good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, guys.
I love forward rolls.
Someone said in the chat, finishing a KiwiCo box. I don't know what that is. Sasha R, can you fill me in?
So KiwiCo box is a thing where you make like either an art project or a little machine with instructions, and it feels powerful because you just made something out of just stuff in the box.
You just made something. Does anyone spot any themes in terms of what we said so far? When we talk about being powerful, what is it that we are saying about what it means to be powerful? Look at the examples given so far. Any themes, any sense of what powerful means emerging here? Kai?
I think that feeling powerful is when you feel in control of a situation, for example, or maybe when you feel that someone's finally trusted you with something. For example, I felt powerful when I managed grade 5 ukulele, which was quite a big achievement for me, and I felt that I could do the ukulele, and I actually had achieved something when I got the distinction for it.
Thank you, Kai, and congratulations. Let's move on to looking at a situation that might make us feel powerful or might make us feel powerless. And let's bring with us into this next stimulus some of these thoughts about what it means to be a powerful young person. Okay, let me share this with you now. Okay. There's loads to talk about with this video, but I also think it's quite useful after seeing something like that, just before we think, to feel. So how do people feel after seeing that? Kai, how do you feel?
I felt shocked at the rate that we're destroying something that can actually help us to restore the damage that we've done on our own world.
Thanks, Kai. Xanthi, how did that hit you? That
I feel angry that people are just ignoring it.
Thank you, Xanthi. Anyone else want to share how they feel before we talk about what we think? Yeah, Sasha.
I'm a bit surprised that they're ignoring it.
Thank you. We were talking a second ago about being powerful. How powerful or unpowerful do people feel having watched that clip? Let's show, if you feel really powerful, can you do this? If you feel quite powerless, can you do this? And if you feel neither, maybe you can do this. Let's see what we've got. Okay, Kai feels quite powerful. Sky, powerless. Daniel's pointing down quite a lot, so Sasha. Or Sasha S, I see, feels quite powerful. So quite a mixture of feelings in terms of your power. Luca, talk to us a little bit about why you're saying you feel powerless watching that video.
The thing is, even though we can make a difference, I keep feeling that it isn't enough. There's more people that ignore it than people that don't, which makes our efforts like more in vain than efforts for other things. I mean, that doesn't mean we should try, but I don't feel like I can fix it. I don't feel like I can be the one person who fixes it, because I can't.
Thank you, Luca.
I can't. I just said it again because the transcript said I can.
Thank you. Daniel, you also said, you were also pointing down feeling powerless. Is there anything you can add to what Luca said about why you feel that way?
Well, everyone in the world needs to be a team, really, to beat climate change. We can't like solve it on our own. We can't just go, oh, there we go, I've shut down every power station and I've got everyone electric cars. You can't do that, really, because everyone needs to work together to stop climate change.
Everyone needs to be a team. Kai, you had a different response. You felt more powerful watching that. Do you want to say why? Why you had a different response from Daniel and Luca?
Well, the fact that we were the ones that made it happen, and now we are the ones that have been given the choice to make the change, and the fact that we are actually starting to take notice. A lot of people are going out onto the streets, and I feel that we, not just me, but all of us can together make a change.
Okay, thank you guys. In the film, Greta says that the solutions are simple. Okay, here's what she says. She says they are simple: to protect, to restore, and to fund. Do you agree that the solutions to climate change are simple? Rebecca's nodding. Rebecca, go for it. Why do you say they are simple?
Simple compared to how difficult it would to implement, because Since humans have had so much time and there's so many of us, why is it taking so long to implement solutions to climate change?
And why is it taking so long, Rebecca? What do you think? Do you have any thoughts on why it is?
Because people can't be bothered to give up parts of their lifestyle to help the environment, because it's not in their own life. It's not like their life won't be affected because they want people. It doesn't directly affect them.
Thanks, Rebecca. Sasha, do you think that's true, that people can't be bothered? That's why it's not happening yet? Sasha,
Yes. Well, I was in the middle because I feel it is kind of simple, but it's not simple because it'll take a long time. It'll take a long time, to be honest. It'll take a long time to do this.
Thank you, Sasha R. Can I go to Sasha S? Because I think you just answered then as well, Sasha S. Would you like to respond?
Yeah.
Do you think it's a simple situation?
Yes, it is quite simple. Just if everybody worked together and do all these things, then it will be very simple.
Sky, just wondering, Rebecca gave us a theory then about why, if it's simple, why haven't people done it yet? And she says, because they can't be bothered. How do you respond to that, Sky?
Well, I agree with that, because most people just think that if they don't do it, it doesn't make much of a difference. When actually, if everyone did it, then it would make a lot more of a difference. So it's not the fact that people think that it's all simple. It's not, because you mean it have to get everyone involved, which most people think that they can't make much of a difference if they contribute, so they don't, because they can't be bothered.
Thank you, Sky. I wanted to ask another question to you. George Monbiot in that video asks, what should you do? I just wanted to ask you, why think that young people should do anything about the climate crisis? Now, Kai has said repeatedly, we got us into this situation, but you could say, no, adults got you into this situation. Why think that young people should do anything to address the climate crisis? Is George Monbiot right to be telling young people what they can do? Daniel, and then Xanthi.
Yes, he is right, because young people still have their, young people still contribute to bad climate. But for example, young people are several times more likely to play video games, which take a lot of power, and a lot of the power will come from coal or oil or gas power stations that make climate change worse.
Thanks, Daniel. Xanthi, and then Luca. Xanthi, you're
sorry. So I think that young people have to fix it, because we may not have got us into this situation, but if we start fixing it now, we will learn habits, good habits, and those habits will make a big difference. And also, I just wanted to say, we only have 12 years until climate change will be unstoppable. So this is
she just cut out at the end there, but I think she's saying this is really important or something like that, right? Something. Luca, can you respond to anything you've heard so far? I was just asking you before, George Monbiot says, what should you do? And I was saying, why think young people should do anything? Why I think it's their responsibility.
They should do it not because they caused it, but because young people, old people, doesn't matter. All of us are people that can do the exact same tasks, no matter if we're adults or not. Tasks like funding can be by parents, but other things like, let's say, planting a tree in your garden. A young person can completely normally do that. It's not like age doesn't matter in this. What matters is the quantity of it.
Thanks, Luca. Kai.
Even though I still feel like a worm in nothingness that is completely powerless, it's still important that Like age doesn't matter in this. Nothing matters. What matters is the amount.
Thank you, Luca. And I hear that what you said there about still feeling powerless. Thank you. Kai.
I think we should also be part of this because, as Lucas said, age isn't a age doesn't matter. We can all be a part, whether it's planting trees in your garden, but in the end, it's our future. It's our future that's going to be changed.
Okay, I can see lots of other hands up. I want to move us on, even though those people still want to speak. So hopefully you'll have a chance in a second. The video ends with Greta Thunberg saying, "What you do counts. What you do counts." Do you believe that's true? What you do, each one of you. James, what do you think?
Kind of. Because like you're helping in lots of people doing it. It's just I don't think enough people do it. So
James, if at the moment, if you're right, if an insufficient amount of people are doing stuff, then does what you, James, do count? Does what you do make a difference? James, if we are in a situation where others are doing insufficient amount?
no, I don't think so because there's like 7 billion people in the world and there's lots of people in power and they're in charge. We can't do much about that, and because they're usually more richer, they're living a better life, so they're not doing anything, and then lots of other people have mindsets of that. So no, I don't think so.
Thank you, James. It's quite a powerful position from James, that the powerful and rich aren't doing enough. So what you do doesn't make all that much difference. How can anyone respond to that? Sasha R, can you respond to that?
I just wanted to say that yes, we can make a difference, and if you don't know where to start like turning off devices at like when you're not at night, and like turning off your computer at night, or turning off the light in a room when you're not there.
Thank you, Sasha. Can we just go back to James and see if he can respond? James, Sasha said a few things about energy saving. Your point was about rich and powerful people not doing enough. Can you respond to what Sasha says there? Would you like a second?
Actually, if the rich and powerful people helped, that wouldn't need to be a problem, because if they used their money to give everyone solar panels and wind turbines on their houses, then that would sort it. So kind of.
Thank you, James. Okay, thank you to those hands are still up, but I want to show you something else now. Okay, so I want to show you two images that you may be familiar with. This image is from 2018, and this second image is only a year later. So the school strikes for climate began, as almost everybody knows probably, with a Swedish schoolgirl who we saw in that video, Greta Thunberg, protesting outside of the Swedish parliament, and it snowballed into a global movement with regular school strikes taking place around the world. Do you think that the school strikes show, as Greta Thunberg has claimed, that no one is too small to make a difference? Do you think the growth of the school strikes show that no one is too small to make a difference? What do you make of that? Rebecca, go ahead. big thumbs up from Becca. Can you?
Because if you think about it, so when Greta was 2018, she was the only person doing it. And then a year later, there's like hundreds of people doing social strike for climate. And therefore, like, it proves that one person can influence hundreds and hundreds of people. And that, like, it proves the point. But on the other hand, it doesn't really prove the point, because like Greta is only one example, and that really makes it so that only one example can't prove anything really. It can only prove for that one person that it worked. Also, I'm sorry, but I sent you a message in the chat.
Yeah, it's all right. I know about your internet. Don't worry. Thank you for that, Rebecca. Who can respond to what Rebecca says? In one sense, Greta's success shows one person can make a difference. In another sense, it doesn't at all. Sky, can you respond to that?
It made a difference to all these other people in the fact that they wanted to try and join in, but it actually hasn't made a difference in the bigger picture if you think about it, because governments still aren't doing anything about it, and there's still climate change. So no matter how many people, start going against it and start rebelling against it and stuff, it's whether or not the people who are in power, like the governments, choose to actually listen or not.
Thank you very much. Sasha S, we've got your little sibling in the video, I think. That's okay, please don't worry. Your sibling is very welcome, so don't fret about that. What do people think then about this suggestion that actually shows us that's not working? It's quite a difficult thing to consider. Kai, what do you think about that claim by Sky?
Well, I think that because it shows that because Greta Thunberg can be considered as a young adult, yet I think she can be an example of you're not too young to make a difference, because one person has then encouraged many other children to join the school strike rebellion, and it just shows how much that even though you're small compared to the ginormity of the world, you've still made that difference, and it's actually turning eyes onto the fact that we have an actual serious climate crisis here.
Thank you, Kai. A related question, people. How would you know if your action had made a difference to the climate crisis? How would any of us know if our action had made a difference? Luca, your hand is still up. Would you like to speak to this question?
Yep. Well, my only answer is we can't really, unless it's like what happened with Greta, when we come back every day and see how many people are supporting it. But say planting one tree, we can't see how much effect that has on the environment if like thousands of other trees are cut down. For example, you know that team trees that happened a year ago or something, that has planted 20 million trees, which is very amazing. But the problem is that over 20 million were cut down in the year that the new 20 million was planted, so it doesn't make much of a difference. Same if you plant a tree. I'm not discouraging people from doing it, but it just won't make enough of a difference. We need to stop the people that cut down trees. But the thing is, we can't. The government are way above our reach. The protests might work, but we can't. The government won't listen to us. We are just little kids, and the government doesn't listen to little kids.
Thank you, Luca. Sky.
The transcript broke.
I have to agree that the government probably just thinks that we're too young to actually understand, and that we're too young to have an opinion that is actually valid and that actually makes a difference. With the trees thing, you will know that if you know that trees can help stop the air from being polluted and all that sort of stuff. You know that if you plant one, you know it'll make a difference. It's not the fact that you can see it, it's just the fact that you subconsciously will know that I have made a difference. Even though it's just one tree, it will make a difference. If every person in the world planted a tree in their back garden, that would be over 7 billion trees already.
Thank you, Sky. Santhi.
As I said in the chat, in response to James, he says that the rich people might help us with money and buy solar panels for everyone. The problem is, the rich people are just too high and mighty to care. They just go along with the government.
Santhi, can I ask you, do you think rich people have a bigger chance to make a difference than less rich people?
Yes, kind of.
Do others think that? The richer you are, the bigger chance you have to make a difference? Lucas saying no. Sky saying yes. Okay, lots of disagreement. Sasha S, tell us what you think. If you're richer, do you have a chance to make a bigger difference?
No, because everybody has the same chance of making a difference.
Why is that, Sasha?
Well, I guess that rich people would probably not care, and even if they do care, well, they might still just because they're so rich, I don't think there is many which do care, but I think less rich people do care a bit more.
Sasha, if a rich person cared, would they have a chance to make a bigger difference than a poor person? Or
Maybe.
Okay. And Kai is saying yes, and he's saying yes so much as that looks like it's going to nod off. Kai, will you tell us why you're so enthusiastically saying yes?
I'm saying yes because if Jamie Oliver starts planting a lot of trees instead of John, who's someone who lives on the street, then it's going to make a bigger difference because everyone goes, oh, this big society celebrity is planting trees. Maybe it's a cool thing to do. I'm going to start planting trees too. Your neighbor thinks the society celebrity is doing that. I'm going to plant trees too. And soon everyone who watches Jamie Oliver and thinks, that's quite a cool thing to do, I think, since Jamie Oliver's doing it. So then they start planting trees too. And then another celebrity does it and so on.
Thank you, Kai. That's an interesting idea. Sky?
A lot of people do use celebrities as role models. And if you think about it, really, a celebrity can afford to buy acres and acres and acres of land and maybe, have rivers flowing through it and stuff, which would mean you could make hydropower. There could be windmills, all sorts of things. These people can afford to do it, whereas someone who lives in a small town probably can't afford it. I mean, people down our street have solar panels on their houses, but a lot of people that live just a bit further down our street can't afford to put solar panels on their houses, whereas these people who have billions and billions can afford to do all of this stuff, but they just can't be bothered to.
Thank you, Sky. And just going back, we've been talking just now about whether people who are rich have a bigger opportunity to make a difference. Just going back to the quote from Greta Thunberg, no one is too small to make a difference. Okay, the inspiration for the title of this session, Too Small to Make a Difference. If some people think that rich people have a bigger chance to make a difference, does that mean that there are some people who are too small to make a difference? What do people think? Sasha R, are there some people who are too small to make a difference when it comes to the climate emergency? Sasha R.
Well, kind of, yes. Because there are some people who have no power, they might be if they're too poor to do anything, or they're in jail so they can't do anything. So there are a lot of people that can't do anything since there's a lot of poverty in the world.
Thank you. Rebecca, what do you make of what you've heard so far?
I think unless you're in solitary isolation, you can always talk to someone. So then you can make a very small difference by going and telling someone, oh, why don't you try to do something about the environment? And I think that really says, like, when you think, oh, are you too small to make a difference? You think if everybody did that, if everybody went and told one person, oh, you should do something about the environment, then maybe they make some sort of major difference on the climate crisis. And I genuinely think that is why, that's why no one is too small to make a difference. It really depends on the definition of small. Is it like in age small or each person being small?
Thank you for those questions about what it might mean to be small, on which the answer probably hangs. We could talk about this more. I can see lots of hands are up, but I also want to move us forward to another part of the stimulus. So I will do that if that's okay, please. Now I'm going to share with you a video about the Fridays for Future movement, a youth movement set up by young people and influenced by Greta Thunberg and many other activists around the world. Okay. So I could ask you lots of things about that. The first thing I would like you to think about, if that's okay, is this. Greta Thunberg and many climate activists strike every Friday from school, every Friday. So my question is, should you strike from school or homeschool? Should you strike from your education every Friday? What do you think? Do you think you could write in the chat, yes, no, or question mark? Okay, all answers are allowed here, remember. Yes, no, or question mark. And let's see if we'll get a lot of response from everybody. And then whoever wants to speak on it can come in. I can see Santi wants to come in. So while people are responding, Santi, would you start us off, please?
So you probably shouldn't do it every Friday, because eventually all those missed lessons will pile up and then you won't know what you're doing when it's not Friday. But maybe you should do it. You should protest some Fridays, and other Fridays you should just do some school. But it is important, so I'm kind of in the middle.
Santi, talk to us about what your misgivings about striking every Friday. Talk about what puts you off there, what concerns you. You talked a little bit about missing stuff. Can you just expand on that, please? Santi. You're muted, Santi. If you just unmute yourself.
We can also do it from school by writing letters to people in Parliament, that kind of thing.
Thank you.
Make a difference whether you're in school or not.
You can make a difference when you're in school. So Santi, what do you think is the most effective thing for a young person like you to do? Is it to try and make a difference whilst being in school on a Friday? Or is it to protest by missing school on a Friday, in your opinion?
Well,
oh, we've lost you again, Santi. You are muted. Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, sorry. So I'm not really sure. I mean, actually being there might be stronger, so skipping school might be stronger, but if you just keep pestering them by writing letters to them, they may eventually try to do something.
Thank you, Santi.
It's really hard to choose.
Sure. Sasha R, then Kai. And my question was, should you be skipping school or homeschool every Friday? What do you think? What do you say, Sasha R?
I just want to say beforehand, I have no say in this because I'm homeschooled and I don't really do much schooling, to be honest.
Yeah.
And also, you should be skipping in school. People should do that because it shows the government they don't care about learning if the world's going to end.
Thank you, Sasha. Kai.
Also, what made me say yes is the fact that one person in the video said that children shouldn't be skipping school for the crisis. So if you do skip school for the crisis, they'll have to go, okay, how can we keep them at school? And they'll have to do something if that's the only thing that's going to keep you at school. Because they want you to have your education as well. You can care about your world, but they want you to have an education. So if they want to keep you at school, then that might be the way to get to them. And also I think it doesn't have to be every single week after week, month after month, so that it's piling up and piling up. You can pester them indirectly, as in like letters and continuously trying to communicate to them. You don't always have to be there in person.
Thank you, Kai.
Because you can be turned away in person, but in a letter they don't know what you're talking about until they actually read the letter.
Thank you. Sky, do you think young people should be foregoing their education on any day of the week or any month of the year to protest against inaction about the climate crisis?
I think, yeah, because if we pester them enough, then soon enough they get annoyed of us and start thinking, oh, well, we need to do something to keep them in school. And in the chat with Santi saying about going vegan, I don't think going vegan makes much of a difference, because, you know, you've still got probably all the chemicals. If you're going vegan in vegetables, they're still going to be put in plastic, which doesn't make much of a difference. And I understand that with meat, it does have to go in a packet that is made of plastic, and you are never ever going to be able to get rid of plastic overall, which does pollute the air. But I do agree that things like crisp packets, chocolate, instead of having bottles of water, have cans of water instead. There are so many things that we could do to get rid of plastic that pollutes the air and contributes to global warming.
Thank you, Sky, for talking about additional food waste and packaging issues, but I'll just encourage everyone to stay really focused on the question that we're talking in the verbal room, and to continue to use the chat to support what we're saying in the room together. So the main question I was asking at the moment is, do you think kids should be striking from their education? And Sky answered that really powerfully. Several people have said, oh yes, if we pester enough. But also Xanthi has raised concerns about, what do you miss if you go to, every single Friday you're not at school? What cost does that bring to a young person? Daniel, what do you think about the question, should young people be striking from their education every Friday or regularly? Daniel.
Well, I wouldn't say every single week, but I think perhaps at my school, because in Friday afternoons, of course, it's like the end of the week, and kind of we don't really do like important learning really. So perhaps in my school. And the other thing was, really interestingly, I recently read a book about climate change, where it's this girl who's surviving in a world that's flooded by the ice caps melting. And it's like, I found it like kind of interesting.
Thank you, Daniel. Luca, what do you think? Do you think young people should give up their education for this cause?
Oops, I was muted. Basically, I don't think so, because remember, you are dealing with the government here. The government can always find an alternate solution. For example, just orphaning the kids or something like that. The government wouldn't let the kids win. They just wouldn't. They're the government of all things.
Oh, I heard Kai's eyes widen when you said orphaning the kids. I wonder if you could say what you mean there. Luca, do you think you could expand slightly? When you say the government will find a way of stopping the kids, could you just expand slightly?
Basically, they would either find the parents, or not find the transcript. Anyway, they would either give them a fine, or they would send them to prison, and then get the children away, sent somewhere else.
So we've had so far we've had some participants saying, look, if we pester enough, the government will have to listen. The government thinks that education is important, so they'll have to listen to us. But now Luke is saying that the government, if they don't want to act, they'll just put the parents of children who don't go to school into prison. What do people think? Do you think you should risk your education and risk your parents getting in trouble to protest, like the Fridays for Future young people are doing? Sky?
They can't.
Go for it, Sky.
They can't eventually put everyone's parents in prison, because if everyone skipped school, or even if they went after school hours, they can't put everyone's parents in prison for that. If eventually enough people contribute, then they can't put everyone's parents in prison, can they?
Do you want to come back on that, Luca? Yeah.
Then they would find an alternate solution. They are still the government. They can do anything.
And can I ask you, Luca, do you think the government is so opposed to acting for the climate crisis that it would rather silence the parents and stop those kids?
It would if the government was a bit less stubborn. Because if the government eventually just did something and put us back into education, that would be the government being too nice, in my opinion. The government is never nice. It never lets us win. It really doesn't. So basically the thing is, they would find a different solution. I don't know what they would do, but they would definitely find a solution that isn't doing something about climate change. Like, they definitely
Thank you,
would.
Luca. Let's just go to Kai, because I can see lots of emotions happening on his face. Kai, do you want to respond to anything you've heard before we go to Daniel?
I think that opposed to Luca, I think that the government wouldn't be so extreme as to punish the parents because of their children's independent act. And if they would have punished the parents, then wouldn't they have done it with Greta Thunberg instead of actually start listening to her?
Thank you, Kai. Daniel, your hand was up before.
It was just a leftover hand.
Okay, at that point, I think I want to share something else with you. This harks back to something that one of you have already hinted at. Okay, this is a front headline from the newspaper. It was last year, in which Greta Thunberg says the school strikes, which she helped initiate, have achieved nothing. She says the school strikes have achieved nothing. Even though we saw this image of her alone and this image of thousands of young people, so that she's clearly helped to organise a mass movement, but she says the school strikes have achieved nothing. She says in this article, 4% greenhouse gas emissions rise since 2015 shows that the action that is happening is just not enough. Can anyone respond to that? The school strikes have achieved nothing. Can we be sure that the school strikes have achieved nothing? Can we be sure she's right? Do we have reason to think she's wrong? How do you respond to that? Rebecca, your hand is still up. Is that because you want to speak, or is that hand just...
No, I don't think she's achieved nothing. Like, come on, 4%. Well, what would have happened before if she didn't do anything? Maybe it would be like 1% more, but then that's different. She's made some sort of difference. It's not nothing. The definition of nothing, well, nothing is the definition of nothing, because if you make a difference, that's not nothing, that's something.
Thanks, Rebecca.
It's actually nothing.
Yeah, go for it, Sky.
I definitely don't think nothing has happened, because all of these different people are aware of it now. And since the government did have that meeting in Glasgow, it means that they are now aware of it and they are listening a bit more, even though they aren't listening as much as they should and they're not paying as much attention as they should. At least they actually had that discussion about it. And even though, you know, they all came on their private planes and stuff, which obviously didn't help the environment, they're still talking about it.
Xanthi, I can see you're very active in the chat. Do you want to come on mic and say some of your thoughts? What do you think about Thunberg's claim that the school strikes have achieved nothing?
Sorry, that's just the car. That's not my argument. So, what did you say before I was speaking again?
I said, as Greta Thunberg claims the school strikes have achieved nothing because there's still been a 4% rise in emissions. Do you agree with that, or do you disagree with that?
So, well, people have been saying lots of stuff in the chat, like if kids skip school, parents will get put in prison, but then no taxes will be paid, so everything will fall apart and there will be no school. So we'll have more time to protest.
So what's the implication of that then, Xanthi? If you're right that things would fall apart if children started striking, mass striking, what's the implication? Is it that children should strike or that they shouldn't?
Well, they should, because things are going to fall apart anyway if we don't fix climate change. So
thank you.
We just end up with the same outcome.
Thank you. Kai.
I originally thought that she was right that it hadn't amounted to nothing, because instead of 4% decrease in emission, it's a 4% increase. But since what Sky said, I realized that yes, they are talking about it. They are thinking about it. They are planning to try to make a difference. They are realizing that we're driving ourselves into a mass extinction of the world. But I also realized that at one point, there was a famous quote that someone said that words won't help unless action follows it. Words won't make a change without someone actually doing something about the change.
Okay. James, you haven't been quiet for a while. I know your hand's not up, but I'm just wondering if there's anything you'd like to say. Do you think that children should be giving up their education to try and bring this change?
Some parts, yes. Some parts, no.
Can you say why?
Well, because you will need, so the more important things like maths and the things you want to learn, then that's what you should be having, and then the things that you don't really need for what you want to do and what you don't want to learn, then you skip to protest.
Okay, so give up only those parts of education that you're not too interested in anyway. Is that the thought? Okay. Luca, can you respond to that? Do you think that's right, that children could give up parts of their education that are less important to them? Is that right?
That is true, but most of the time children do not decide what kind of education is important for them. And I'm not going against that. I'm just saying that that's sort of a problem. But if their parents support it, then yes. Also, what I was going to originally say is that it has done nothing because the government haven't acted yet. Like, I don't think, like, even if some people followed the protests and planted trees in their garden, remember, there's always more trees being cut down than the ones you can plant a minute. So, obviously, it's not going to make a difference unless the government do something about it, which they haven't, so logical.
Okay. What I'm going to share with you now is some possible ways forward. Okay. We have been thinking so far about whether one person can make a difference, about whether joining mass movements is something useful and effective. We've also considered the idea that the activism so far has achieved nothing. Now I want you to consider these proposed way forwards, and I want you to think about which best describes what you think most people think, and which best describes what you think is the way forward. There are lots of ways forward. Here are just 4, right? But let's imagine that there are a sort of continuum of ways forward. It'll be clearer when I show you. Take a look at this. So imagine this kind of continuum kind of goes from one extreme, which is doing stuff that could be really quite bad for the environment, to the other extreme, which is dedicating everything to addressing this problem. So let me describe what these things are. The first option I call YOLO. Does anyone know what YOLO stands for? You only live once, right? You only live once. Sometimes people say YOLO to mean just forget about it, go out and have fun. Okay, so a YOLO person thinks this. They think we should ignore the climate crisis because it makes us feel bad and there's nothing we can do about it anyway. We should enjoy life as much as we can. We should acquire stuff that makes us happy. We should eat what we like. We should travel as much as possible. We should take part in the joys of life and not worry about the climate crisis because it's beyond our control. Okay, so that's one end of the spectrum. Here's another option, right? Business as usual. There's no need to worry about the climate crisis too much. We are already doing some things to slow down climate change and protect the environment, like phasing out coal and recycling more plastic. And something is better than nothing. If we carry on like this, technology might help us out in the future. Plus, for the time being, we can enjoy the kind of normal life that we're used to. Okay, that's another option. Slightly less extreme than YOLO. Here's another option. Keep on plugging. So these people think the climate crisis is important and what we do now matters. Individual and collective action can work. It just hasn't happened yet. So concerned people should keep on voting. They should keep talking about the climate crisis. They should keep lawfully protesting, so not breaking the law. And hopefully their continued efforts will eventually persuade leaders to act and help us avoid the worst impacts of climate and ecological breakdown. So that's kind of like activists keep on going. Now here's a really extreme proposal, and this is what I want you to consider. These people who say double down, work twice as hard. The people who say work twice as hard think this. The climate crisis is the biggest challenge humanity has ever faced. What we're doing now is not working. The radical action is needed. Citizens of all ages should engage in acts of civil disobedience, breaking the law. To get attention, protesters should break the law. For example, they should block roads, they should blockade businesses, and they must not stop until there is real change. So this isn't kind of action at another end of the extreme. What I want to ask you now is, firstly, which one of these ways of looking at the climate crisis do you think describes what most people think? Does anyone want to speak on this? Sky?
I think most people are either between the YOLO or business as usual. I know a few people who are definitely in the YOLO part, which I do not agree with at all. I am definitely for double down, but I don't agree with not caring about it, because the more that we don't care about it, the more it means that everyone's lives are going to not live as longer, because the earth won't last.
Thank you, Sky. I'll come back to your thoughts about double down in a second, but we'll keep on the topic of what other people might think. That's really interesting. Daniel, in your experience, what do you think many of the people you come into contact with, which profile best describes their attitude, do you think?
Most people that I know are keep plugging, to be honest. Most people keep plugging or business as usual, but slightly more so keep plugging. Well, there's just a lot of people that I know want to stop climate change and has that opinion, and everyone should keep voting, but the thing is, they're not actually, a lot of people have an opinion but don't make a difference. Sort of like me, to be honest, because I don't know, I can't really make a difference in my home. Like, I can't say, oh, I've just gone out to buy a new electric car because I'm not like 17 or something. But I still have the opinion of keep plugging though. And most of the people I know say that.
Thank you. That's really interesting. Kai, what describes the people that you come into contact with?
Some of the people are keep plugging, but a lot are business as usual. A lot think that if we just continue making more technology, even though it might be using power, we'll, whether it's accidental or not, find a technological thing that's going to solve the crisis for us. And it isn't our problem because we didn't get ourselves into the crisis. Why should us kids have to get us out? But some are keep plugging. They agree that you shouldn't break the law, but keep on trying to find a way of making a difference.
Thanks, Kai. Sky.
I think that even us as kids have definitely contributed to this, because a lot of people take some my little nephew, for instance, he has a Switch, phone, iPad, Xbox. These all contribute. I know they are fun, and he doesn't need all of that, in my opinion. I am very opinionated about how young he is and how young people don't need these things, especially since he's only 7. He does not need things like an iPhone at 7. Young people don't need these things that help contribute to global warming, climate change, all of these things. We do contribute because we do play on these games and stuff, but not everyone can go out and put solar panels on the top of their roofs. Not everyone can put a windmill in their back garden. We've planted a lot of plants in our garden, but there is actually no more space now. We can't go out and buy an electric car.
Thank you very much, Sky. Okay, Sky kicked us off before by describing which of these profiles kind of describes what she thinks is the next step. Does anyone else want to talk about what they think? Are you a YOLO person? Are you a business as usual, keep plugging, or a double down kind of person? James, then Rebecca.
I would say I'm business as plugging. So like a fine line between business as usual and keep plugging.
Wonderful. Tell us why, James.
Well, I'm not sure. It's like that instead of there is no need to worry about the crisis for the business part, is for me instead of that it's I'm too small to do anything. And then I also think the crisis is important and what we do now matters.
There sounds like a little bit of a paradox there. You think that what you do matters, but also that you're too small to make a difference. Can you help us untangle that?
Okay, I think what people do, like lots of people, or like crowds do, matters. But I don't like the individual collective action can work. It can't. You've got to. It's got to be lots instead of one for something to actually happen. So it's business.
Thank you, James. Rebecca, could you tell us, do any of these profiles describe what you're thinking about what next?
I really think keep plugging, because in the end, if there's nothing you could do, it's like doing extreme actions. If there's nothing one person can really do, is almost wasting too much of your life. You do have one life, like YOLO, but I don't think like consuming your whole life to climate change is not going to work. It's a bit It's like, if it's not going to work and you do keep plugging, well, then it's not that much of a sacrifice.
Thank you. Sky, you started to defend your position on double down. Would you go into that a bit more, and then you'll be followed by Sasha R?
I do think that double down is a good way to do it. I don't agree with doing things like breaking the law and stuff when it does come to these things, but I definitely think that doing protests, doing more things like when you're not in a room, turning the lights off in our hall, instead of having to remember to turn off the lights every time we leave, it's an automatic one. So when you walk into the hall, the light turns on. Once you've left the hall, it turns off. That is a good way to do it, because then
That use power though. The automatic system would use power just like the lights. It would just waste more power.
No, it still uses the same amount of power as the light switch if you think about it, because it's battery powered.
Sky, can I ask you something about, so thank you for explaining how you could continue to make energy savings around the home. But one of the things Double Down says is radical action is needed. Citizens should engage in acts of civil disobedience, including breaking the law, and they should not stop until there is change. So it's quite a strong position. Do you agree that protesters should keep protesting, like blocking roads, which is an illegal activity, until there is action, as in keep going until there is change? Do you stand by that part of it, Sky?
That's the only thing that I don't agree with, is doing things that are illegal. I do agree that we need to get the government to listen more, and that we need to do more to like let people know that it's serious, it needs action now. But that is why there is a fine line between keep plugging and double down. I am mainly for double down, but when it comes to breaking the law and stuff, I'm not going to do that, because I know it'll get more people to notice us, but it also won't, because people think, oh, they're breaking the law. You know, we're not going to follow what they're doing. We don't want to get in trouble.
Thank you, Sky. Very interesting argument. Sasha R, eventually. Thank you for waiting patiently.
I just want to say that I'm double plugging business. I'm a bit like, I feel like I'm too small to do anything like James, but I'm also really think it's really important, super important. People should do things like that are within the law, but biggest things as possible.
Really interesting that people are experiencing this thought where they think, I'm too small to make a difference, but it is important that people act. I wonder who the people who should act are, Sasha. Who do you think are the people who should be acting, if not you, because you're too small? Sasha,
Wait, what did you say?
I said, who do you think should be acting? If you're too small to make a difference, then who should be doing the actions, do you think?
Well, people who are comfortable with other people, because I'm not comfortable with random people out. Yeah. So people who are comfortable to do it. It's people who are really who probably are super keep plugging or super double down. People like those should, and people like YOLO and business as usual should realize and should do it. But I don't really think it's my job, because I'm really not comfortable with other people outside.
Thank you, Sasha. Again, I hear that. Luca, thank you for waiting patiently.
I am in between YOLO, double down, and keep plugging. Basically, YOLO is we should enjoy the part that I am going to take from each. From YOLO, I'm going to take that we should enjoy our life as much as possible, not just because of climate change, because of the possibility of the world ending, but just because we only have one life. Like, we have to fulfill, we have to enjoy as much as we can here on our time on this world. For the keep plugging, I do agree that we should protest to stop climate change. And from the double down, I would take that climate change is indeed a huge crisis. And also, isn't skipping school on Fridays to protest technically breaking the law, because the law says you have to go to school?
Sure. So this is an act of civil disobedience. What the Fridays for Future children are doing is they're not getting their education, which is mandated by law. Sure. And as people talked about earlier, the worry about there being consequences for that civil disobedience. Yeah. Thank you, Luca, for looking at each of those viewpoints and finding something to recommend them. That was really interesting act of kind of philosophical thinking there. We're moving towards the very end of our session. So what I want us to do is just to take a few moments to reflect. Kai, I can see your hand still up, and hopefully you'll have a chance to reflect when to be the first speaker when we come to this reflection. Just move us on to, here we are. Sorry. I asked you at the very beginning how that video made you feel, and I want you to think more broadly about the whole session. There's a series of questions here. How did it make you feel, this session? Is there a connection between what you feel about this topic and what you think about this topic? Is there a connection between what you think and what you'll do? What, if anything, should people be doing about the climate crisis? So instead of working through all these questions, I'm very happy for someone to comment on any or all of them in the closing moments of our session. Kai will be the first speaker.
I think that there may be a connection between what you think and what you will do, because you might think I want to go out there and protest, and you go out there and protest. You might think more trees is going to help, and then you plant trees in your back garden. And I think what people should do is that they should be aware, they should really realize that we're walking towards a mass extinction of life on planet Earth. And I think even if we do find another planet to inhabit and we continue our normal ways, we're going to wipe out that planet as well. So it's not about, some people might think it's about finding a new home. Oh, it's the end of the world, we should find a new home on a different planet, and then continue as with life as usual, with your diesel and your petrol and your fossil fuel, and it won't do to just think, oh, I'll just find another place to live. Also, I really think that there's a connection with what you feel and what you think, because you might feel, oh my word, this is terrible. I feel that there needs to be action. And you think about the action that needs to be taken. And then with that connection of what action needs to be taken, you do that action.
Thank you, Kai. Sasha R and then Sasha S. I'm going to come to you in a moment because we haven't heard from you for a while. So Sasha S, get ready. Sasha R, go.
So I feel that some session made me angry because the government isn't listening, and it made me aware. And there is a connection of how you feel and what you think. Because if you're angry, you feel angry, you feel determined, you feel something, you feel like you want to change. You want to change. And if there is a connection on what people think, or there is maybe, there to me, there kind of isn't much of a connection between our think and our do.
Thank you, Sasha.
And wait, can I say something?
Please, yeah.
And people should do things like, as like all the things as mentioned, all the good things mentioned before, or to fix it.
Thank you, Sasha. Sasha R. Sasha S, is there anything you'd like to say?
I feel angry too, because the government's not listening, and you need to make them listen so that they can change climate change, and then it's all back to normal.
Thank you, Sasha. Kai.
Sorry, it was a leftover hand.
Oh, Luca.
Okay. So what I wanted to say is that what was I going to say? Oh,
How has the session made you feel? Is there a relationship between what you feel and what you think? Is there a connection between what you think and what you do?
I think that we should fix climate change. We should try to fix climate change. On the other hand, I'm just way too paranoid to protest. I just don't want to protest. I'm not the kind of person that is brave enough to do that.
Thank you, Luca, for sharing that.
That is not what I originally wanted to say, but it worked.
Thank you. Xanthi, can you say something about these reflective questions?
So
What about is there a connection between what you think and what you'll do?
so oh, sorry.
Don't worry, I'll come back to you, Xanthi, and I'll come back to you because it sounds like you're in traffic at the moment. Daniel, do you want to say anything in the final moments of our session before we call it an evening?
I don't think particularly this session has made me more angry than I was about climate change, but I think that I have learned a bit from the videos. Like, I didn't actually know that climate change would be irreversible by 2030. I thought it was 2050.
And what do you think, what, if anything, should people be doing about the climate crisis in light of that information that you heard today about 2030, Daniel?
Well, I think that this is just one last thing, but really, I don't think everyone can make a difference. Even like some people can't make a difference, like they don't have enough money to make a difference. Or for example, the only way for them to stay living and the only way for them to survive and stuff is to stay as they are. Some people can't make a difference, but it doesn't really mean we can't try.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Luca, make this super quick because we need to draw to a close. You're going to be the final speaker.
Okay, the quick thing that I wanted to say is that, you know the punishment thing I said for a long time ago? If skipping school on Fridays to protest is illegal, which it is, then the government would have perfect reason to punish parents.
And do you think that young people should ever do something illegal to protest in favour of something they think is important?
It depends on their choice. It's really their choice at this point.
Thank you so much, everybody. So
if they want to risk it, if they want to risk losing their parents, then do it. But as I said before, I'm not brave enough. The end.
Thank you. So I just want to thank you all for your thoughts this evening. You've had a really long session. It's been incredibly rich. There's been lots of variation. The main thing that I think has been fantastic in this session is I asked you to interact with each other respectfully about this topic, and you really have. There's been a lot of passionate defences of different points of view, but there's been an incredible amount of respect throughout the whole discussion. So thank you so much for doing that. You're brilliant.